Good morning and Shabbat Shalom on this Sabbath. The true Sabbath is this Saturday. There's about 11 weeks left before the actual biblical New Year. You multiply that by 7, and that means there's about 77 days left of the biblical New Year. The first day of the year will be Saturday, March 21st, which makes that Friday before the last day of the biblical year, which is day 364, which is a Sabbath. You multiply 7 into 364, you got exactly, 52 weeks. That being said, before I get out of here in this cold weather, I was moved after doing some reading to explain to you the hidden meanings that a lot of people get the Apostle Paul or Shaul wrong. And they don't understand it. Your false pastors in the church don't understand it either. So prayerfully, the Ruach will give you some understanding of what the Apostle Paul meant in Galatians chapter 3. So get you a King James Bible, and I will explain these things to you. We're going to read through the chapter. Hopefully we can keep this video under 20 minutes. And it starts. I want to start at the beginning, no. Well, that will make it a lot longer. Let's go ahead. I wanted to start at verse 16. So make a mark and a notation by 16. So I'm going to read rather quickly. But when we get to 16, we're going to slow down and start explaining things. Okay, verse 1. O foolish Galatians. Remember, the Apostle Shaul was writing to Hebrew Israelites in Galatia. He was not speaking to everybody. Okay, O foolish Galatians, who has bewitched you, that you should not obey the truth, before your eyes, Yahushua, the Mashiach, has been evidently set forth, crucified amongst you. Now, what that means is that, now this is after Yahushua was crucified. When he rose from the dead, he left his burial cloth with an imprint. There was an image of him on there. It was very faint, but you could see it. Today it's known as the Shroud of Turin. This gives record of that even in scripture. To be, when the Apostle Shaul said, before your eyes, Yahushua has been shown, it's evident. That means his evidence of his crucifixion is on that cloth. You see the nail prints in his wrist, and you see the wound in his side, you see the crown of thorns. He's talking about the shroud, and that's also proof of his resurrection. So he's saying, who's bewitched you that you won't believe, even though the cloth and you see his image on there and proof of his resurrection? That's what Shaul is talking about. See, you don't know that. This only what I learned of them, that you receive the Ruach by the works of the law. Now, see, he's going into it. Works of the law. See, people get things confused. There's a difference between the law and the commandment. Okay? A lot of people use them interchangeably, but there is a difference. Remember, faith without works is dead. What are the works? He's talking about the keeping of the commandments. So the works of the law are the keeping of the commandments. So he says, or by hearing of faith. Hearing of faith means the same thing. You have to hear the commandments. You have to have them preached to you. How can you keep that which you don't know? How you gonna know it unless there be one who teaches you or baptize you? To teach is to baptize. So you can't keep the commandments if you don't know them. And the only way you can keep them is by the words of a preacher, one of the elect. He has to baptize you or teach you into Yahushua, what his true name is and what the keeping of the commandments is. Okay? That being said, let's jump down because I want to keep this short. I wanted to start at verse 16 because this is a point of confusion amongst the elect. When it says amongst the church, that means the brethren. Church in Hebrew is the Hebrew word kahal, which means gathering of brethren. Okay, now unto Abraham and his seed were the promises made. And he said, not and to seeds as in plural, as in many, but as to one, and only thy seed, which is the Mashiach or the anointed. Now, we know the word seed can mean singular or plural. And the Hebrew word for seed is amir or zamar. The Greek word for seed is sperma. The men contain the sperma. The seed of man is his sons, because the seed is passed down through a father's sons unchanged. I carry the same seed as my father. He carries the same as my grandfather, all the way back to whichever Hebrew, all the way back to Adam. Okay? That's how that works. And a lot of people don't understand that. So let's keep reading. And this I say, that the covenant which was confirmed of Elohim in the Mashiach, the law which was 430 years afterwards, cannot disannul that it should make the promise of none effect. So what the Apostle Shaul is saying is that Elohim that spoke to Abraham, or let's just keep it simple, when the Most High spoke to Abraham, he made a promise to him. Actually, that was the son speaking to him. That was Yahushua speaking to Abraham, the word of Yahuwah, the son of Yahuwah. That was him interacting all throughout the Old Testament. So the son himself was speaking to Abraham. Verse 18, for if the inheritance be of the law, he's talking about the promise. It is no more of the promise. But God gave it to Abraham by promise. So again, he promised Abraham something. And he was talking about, to your seed, I will give it to you. Now, seed is ambiguous in English. It can mean singular or plural, but we're going to find out what he meant in a minute. Now, remember, the word wherefore in your King James Bible can mean two different things. Wherefore can mean why, or it can also mean therefore. So in this verse 19, it says, wherefore then serveth the law? That means why, okay? So he's asking, why serve the law? And he said it was added because of transgressions. That means people were sinning so much, you had to have a law. First, the commandments were given, okay? The commandments are actually what you should do. The speed limit would be the commandment. Drive 55. The law would be the punishment for breaking the speed limit. So he's talking about the law. See, when we transgressed the law, we broke the speed limit or we transgressed against Yahuwah, punishment was instant. We got stoned, for adultery, this is an adulterous generation. So understand that there's a difference. The commandments was given, and then the law, which is the punishment for breaking the commandments, is the law. Okay. And he says they were added because of transgressions. You had to have law because if you didn't kill the wicked, the lawless would outnumber the righteous and they would just overcome. It would be chaos. So you had to have a law, in fact, where there was capital punishment. Somebody profane Yahuwah's name, stone them. Adultery, stone them. Man going to a man's wife, you get caught stealing, all sorts of things. So that's the difference. Okay. And he said they were added because of transgressions until the seed should come. That seed was Yahushua, the Mashiach, to whom the promise was made. And it was ordained by angels in the hand of a mediator. He's talking about to Moses on the mount. Okay. The mediator is the son. He was the one that actually spoke to Moses on the mountain. And he also came in the flesh. Moses wrote about the son, saying, a prophet like myself will be raised up. Him you shall listen to. Okay. And he says, now a mediator is not a mediator of one. A mediator has to mediate between two people. But God is one. So when you're a mediator, you're mediating between. So he's talking about the Son of Man again, Yahushua, who's also one with the Father. But he's also the mediator that's the go-between between the Father and Israel, his people. Not everybody else. There's a difference. He didn't make that covenant with all the other nations. He made it with us. So Yahushua is and was and is the mediator between Israel and the Most High. The promises were given to us. And let's keep reading. Verse 21. Now he's posing a question. Is the law then against the promises? And he says, God forbid. That means no. He says, for if there had been a law given, which one could get everlasting life. He said, truly righteousness should have been by the law. So there's no law out there that can give you, in other words, the law was the punishment. It made you scared to break the commandments, or else you get killed. So what he's saying, the law couldn't give you life, and the life that he's talking about is the Ruach, the baptism of fire by knowing Yahuwah Shua that comes by his spirit. Even though the law was there, you still had wicked people that didn't fear Yahuwah, and they still committed adultery and were murderers, and they died. That's because their hearts wasn't right. Remember, the heart's of stone. So let's keep reading. So he's saying that spirit couldn't come by the law because people were still breaking. There were some that were righteous and obeyed the law, but it was still out of fear and stuff. But you still had righteous ones. Mashah, Moses was righteous. You still had some righteous people out there, and they knew these things. Verse 22, but the scripture has concluded all under sin. Okay, he was talking about not just Israel, but all, and those who didn't know, but he was really specific. The book is about Israel alone. So we're all sinners. It says the book is concluded all under sin, that the promise by faith of Yahuwah Shua, the Mashiach, might be given to them that believe. Now see, your old false pastors of the church will first of all profess that false name, that J word, Jesus, which was never the son's name, and say all you got to do is sit back and believe in him, and that's enough. No, it's not. Let's reread that. But the scriptures has concluded all under sin, that the promise that Abraham, which was the son, that the Son of Man gave to Abraham, who believed his word, the promise of faith of Yahuwah Shua, the Messiah, might be given to them also that believe. That means that believe on his true name, Yahuwah Shua, and that he's the Messiah, but also that's righteousness because he believed his word. But that you got to keep his commandments also, because what did Yahuwah Shua say? If you love me, you'll keep my commandments. So it's not enough. Devils believe. As they tell you that. Satan believes and knows his name. But that doesn't make you righteous. Just sitting back, I know there's a God. And first of all, his name ain't Jesus. That's Satan in disguise. You have to be taught, which I'm doing to you now. It's called the baptism. You have to be taught. You have to be taught that his name was Yahuwah Shua. The Father's name is Yahuwah. Christ was it's a false word as well. It's derived from the Greek word Christos. But the Hebrew word that the apostle spoke was Mashiach, which means the anointed one. Okay, let's go to verse 23. Let's keep moving. But before faith came, we were kept under the law, shut up unto faith. That means we were just kept because we had to have a law which should afterwards be revealed. In other words, we had a law that kept us in line until Yahuwah Shua was brought into the earth. Okay. Now, verse 24, wherefore in this case means therefore, not why. Therefore, the law was our schoolmaster. We was taught by the law. So it became a practice, just like you used to knowing that if you break the speed limit, you get a ticket, you become aware of the laws of the land. The true children of Israel, we knew the laws. So we kept them out of not just fear of Yahuwah, but practice. That was our schoolmaster. Verse 28, for you are all children of Elohim by faith in Yahuwah Shua, the Mashiach. That was his true name. That was the name that the apostle Shaul declared. He never spoke that J word. Okay. And he said, you are all children. Now he's speaking to all people, not just Israel, but Gentiles and all. And you're going to see that coming up. Verse 27, for as many of you as have been baptized into the Mashiach have put his spirit on. You have to be baptized or taught. It ain't just dunking you in water. You come up still ignorant. John the Baptist said, I teach using water as an example, but he coming after me is mightier than I. He will teach you by the spirit of fire, which is the Holy Spirit, the Ruach. His elect are the ones that he poured that spirit on. He breathed on the 12 apostles. They were all Hebrew Israelite men. The elect or the remnant or the rest of the elect are what's called the remnant. They have that same baptism and are ordained to teach the truth rightly. in his right name, because you have to worship him, not just in spirit, but in truth. Can't be no lies in it. So he says, for as many of you has been taught in the Mashiach have put on his spirit. The Son of Man's name is Yahuwah Shua. That's his name. It means the salvation of Yahuwah. Now, this is another point of ignorance and confusion, but I'm going to clear it for you. He said, for there is neither Jew nor Greek, you've heard that many times, nor bond nor free, neither is there no male or female. Well, obviously there's men and women. There's a difference between men and women. And there's a difference between Hebrew Israelite, Negroes and Gentiles, Grecians. There's differences. That's obvious. But he says we are all one, or means an agreement in the Yahuwah and the Mashiach. But what that means is that after you've been baptized, both male, women, men teach women, and the elect, which is the Hebrew Israelites, what they put in the word Jew. Hebrew Israelites are not just of Judah. They're all the 12 tribes. You have to be baptized. We're the ones that teach the Greeks and the Gentiles because we're the true children of you. They never knew him. Only we known. So we were commanded to go forth and teach all nations, baptizing and teaching of the same, baptizing them in the name of the Father. Well, what's his name? The Father's name is Yahuwah. That was the first and great commandment in Exodus 3:15, that you know and teach his name to your children's and children's children for all generations. He said, this is my name forever and my memorial, which means how I am known unto the end. So that's Exodus. That's the big, great commandment. You have to know the Father's name if you're going to know the Son's name. Well, what's the Son's name? His name is also Yahuwah. You call on Yahuwah, the Son's going to turn around too, because that's the beginning of his own name. But the Son's name has 5 utterances. It's Yahuwah Shua, not no Yahusha, you ignorant fools. I don't want to call you fools. You're just ignorant. His name ain't no Yahusha. The fullness of the Father's name is in the Son's name. That tells you that in Exodus 23:21. When the Father said, for my name is in him. So Yahuwah Shua literally means the salvation of Yahuwah, or Yahuwah's salvation, which is his first and only begotten son. Okay, that's what that means. And let's read the last verse. And if you be the Messiahs, then you are also Abraham's seed and heirs according to the promise. So that means after you have been properly taught or baptized, because you can't even keep Passover, which is a commandment, unless you've been taught by one of the elect. He says, no stranger shall draw near and keep that feast. And that feast is coming up in about 79 days. 79 weeks, rather. Am I right? Wait a minute. Well, it's coming up soon, about the second week in April. You have to be baptized. You have to know, you have to worship him in spirit and truth. If you truly love Yahuwah Shua, he said, you will keep my commandments. There's a difference in commandments and the law. You break his commandments, like let's say, for instance, I slip or something and break it. I ain't going to get stoned right now. The law is set aside for a season. That's grace. But after things are over with, yeah, that's coming back. Those who don't love him and don't keep his commandments are going to suffer the second death, and that's the eternal death. So that's what that means. There's a difference between Hebrew Israelites and Europeans, which are Satan's children, and Gentiles, which is a collective word for all other people outside of Israel. There's a difference. There's a difference between men and women, and there's a difference between males and females. There's a difference between the sons of men and humans. Humans is a word they added in, which is a form of a man, but that's also Satan's children, the tares. Just going into other areas that you may or may not know. So once you've been baptized, which means to teach, baptism has nothing to do with water. You can receive baptism. You can be taught over an internet video like I'm doing now. And you receive his name and you love him to the point to where you desire to keep his commandments. And you become, and how you going to keep them unless you are taught how to keep them? You don't know nothing about how to keep Passover properly, but I can teach you that. Once you do those things, and then you do it out of love and not fear because you're going to get stoned, that's when the Ruach operates in you, and you become Abraham's inheritance, whether you're Hebrew Israelite, European, Gentile, or anything. Remember, the same apostle wrote Romans 11:18. He said, don't boast against the natural branches. I'm a natural branch. He said, if you boast against us, which Europeans do all the time, they despise us. Them niggas don't know nothing. He said, if you boast against us, you don't have the root. And that's how salvation works. The last shall be first and the first last. Those, it's like that reality show, Undercover Boss. Those that they lynched, killed, hated, despised are truly their bosses. He said, I see servants riding on horses and the heirs of the kingdom being servants. That's also in the scripture. That's doing slavery. We were the ones bound down to the master on the horse, but we're truly the elect. And he said, we gonna judge angels. So how much more are the simple things of this life? We're right at 20 minutes, and I wanted to keep that. And I want to give you the understanding of that, because all them false pastors that teach by that false name don't understand it. They've taught you wrong. They've baptized you under a false name and under a false spirit. Because the Son of Man said, where 2 or 3 are gathered in my name, he was talking about his true name, Yahuwah Shua. He said, there I am in the midst. So if you had a heart to receive this and your understanding has been open, then that has been fulfilled. And then your thirst and desire should be, how do I know the true Sabbaths? When is the Passover properly, the season of it? How do I keep it? That I may please Yahuwah and even the Son of Man. So with that being said, I see the sun rising a little, and I have business to take care of. And I'll say, peace be with you, Shalom.